Well, good morning and welcome to Being Your Own CEO. This is our weekly mastermind hangout, modeled after Napoleon Hill's mastermind concept, and we're here to discuss all things business, especially for solo entrepreneurs, obviously. So I want to welcome everyone who's joined me in the green room this morning. And I would like to begin by giving everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. So I'm going to start on the other end this morning. Larry, how would you like to begin?
My name's Larry Earnhardt. My business is Alchemy Business Consulting. I'm a business coach and consultant. I call myself the Profit Mentor. And what I try to do is help people to make their businesses profitable.
Right on. Thank you, Larry. And Jay, what about you?
Hello, my name is Jay, and my company is Magi Studios. I also have another company called Affiliate Resources Incorporated, and basically both businesses are all about helping you get your business ranked on the internet.
Right on. And Cheryl Ann.
As you can see, Cheryl Ann Webster. So otherwise known as the Boob Lady, and I have a business called the Beautiful Women Project, where I change the way that we see ourselves and in turn changing how we live. It's a sculptural exhibit with workshops and presentations all about empowering women and girls.
Right on. But I didn't catch what you said. I know what you said, but I'm going to say it without your accent. The Boob Lady. And those plaster castings are absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. But I do have to say they're clay.
Oh, are they? Oh,
that's one of the biggest business challenges I have. People are familiar with plaster, they're not familiar with the clay and the permanence of it. So you can bury them, burn them, drop them in the ocean, they'll survive in 1,000 years.
Right on. So welcome this morning, Cheryl. And Anne, how about you?
Well, my name is Anne. Divertime, my business is Visionary Business Solutions. I do bookkeeping, office management, and business consulting for small businesses.
Right on. And thank you for joining us. And I might say that my business is Workstyle Lifestyle Consulting. I do business coaching for solo entrepreneurs. And in addition to this little exercise that we do every week, I teach a 3-part course called Beginner's Google for Business. So that's great. We're all here. We may there may be 1 or 2 more people sort of drop in as we carry on, and if they do, that's just fine. They can do that, and we'll carry on. So this morning, the question arose last week after we, I guess it was in conversation over the phone, wasn't it, Anne?
Yes, yeah.
And so Anne suggested that we think about and talk about retirement. She was saying that she wasn't sure when or if or how. So I left the question wide open. What about retirement? Because all of us, well, we're sort of have a range in age here, and so I mean we're all thinking about our livelihood here. So and it occurred to me that the way we define retirement, it seems to be evolving over the last few years, and so I thought I might just throw that out to begin with. How do we define retirement right now? Anybody have any ideas about how they think about or define it?
Well, I have an idea.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
No, I was just going to say, for me, it's pretty simple. It's as I head into retirement, the only thing that changes is I get really choosy on the jobs I want to do and how I spend my time. Otherwise, there's sort of no end date to what I do.
Aha.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. No end date.
Yeah, I look at it as choosing whether to go into work or not that day.
Being choosy. Okay. What about you, Anne? How do you think about it?
Well, I'm at that age where I am really thinking about retirement, but again, I really enjoy what I do, so I'm just hoping to work a little less and have a little more time. And as Chairland knows, I'm got this whole thing where I'm trying to balance bookkeeping and art because art is my other love, and if I can find a way to make more money with art, then I'll spend less time bookkeeping. But I would never really give it up because I love the people that I work with. I really enjoy working with my clients. I feel like I'm giving them value for their money, and it's fun for me to see businesses starting out and help them get themselves organized and get on the right track so that they don't have complications later on.
Yeah. Right. Well, for me, I think about retirement as I guess I would use that word choosy as well. The other word I would use is flexibility, lots more flexibility. But what occurs to me, I guess I've done some reading and thinking about the whole idea of as we age. In the past, we've seen people contract. So I see the traditional way of looking at retirement as a contraction. And for me, that's not my idea of the way I want to spend the next 20 years of my life in contraction mode. So I want stimulation. I want interesting things to do and interesting things to learn. So and I guess it's no different from the way I was or the way I thought during my main career, but it's still there and very, very important to me. So it's about retirement for me is not non-contraction. So I mean, we're bordering on the way we feel about it. I guess there's a lot of emotion, the way we think about it and the way we feel about it. I mean, I can remember hearing some phrases like being put out to pasture. Have you ever heard that one? I mean, when you hear all that sort of negative talk, I mean, it makes you begin to think in a negative way.
Yeah. I think that carries over with traditional forms of employment. And that's obviously where the term retirement evolved from. Is you work as an employee for a company, you get paid, you take a chunk of that money that you earn and you put it into retirement. And at the age of whatever, 65, if you will, is the time when you are supposed to retire. Right, and it's exactly what you say. It's a contraction, So I think the moment people leave the world of being an employee and enter the world of being an entrepreneur or your own online business, that term, it doesn't really exist for us anymore, or at least it changes, because if you really do think about it, we are already in retirement ourselves because we work for ourselves. We have flexible hours. We can do what we want. If we don't want to go into work tomorrow, we don't. We're not obligated to. So it's an empowerment, I think. In terms of, I've never used the term retirement. I think it's just more flexibility. We're not conformed to do things as a normal person who would be employed is required to do. So. And I think in terms of the finances, as long as we still continue on with being responsible with, putting chunks of money away, we can have that passive income, where we don't have to work 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, whatever. So, I mean, my business is all about being online. I mean, I run almost a virtually paperless business, and I don't You know, I mean, I have an office to get out of the house to work, but I don't need an office. I just need an internet connection. So to me, that's my freedom. You know, that's my freedom 41. So.
You brought up a very good point, though. As entrepreneurs, and of course not everybody listening is, but as entrepreneurs, if retirement has a different slant on it, we have obviously some benefits to that, but the downsides are, what do we do with our business when we decide, or when we choose to do fewer hours, or actually to close up the business? And that's sort of more my burden when I retire, or whatever that's going to be called. When I stop doing what I'm doing, either by choice or necessity, what happens with the practical, the physical, and the intangible part of the business?
Right. Well, I mean, you can always sell it.
Unless you've written a mission to never sell it.
It's actually very hard to sell a small business that is run by one person, because you don't have something that's very saleable. And there's businesses out there that spend their time helping small businesses become saleable so that the owner can sell their business when they want to retire. But the reality is that for a lot of us, we're the salesperson, we're the talent, we're everything. So if you own physical things, if you have a building, if you have trucks, if you have equipment, your business becomes more saleable. When it's just you, can you train someone to be you? You know, will that transition work? I've been involved with businesses that have closed down, that have tried to transition from a more senior owner to a junior owner, with all sorts of different things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And there's quite a few tax laws to be aware of if you decide that you really do want to sell your business. You need to plan a couple of years ahead, because there's a number of things you need to do to make sure that you're not offside if you're selling shares. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Cheryl Ann, you raise something that occurs to me. I mean, if you stop your business, what are you going to replace it with? Does that mean you're going to fold up in the corner and do nothing?
I guess it depends on why you're stopping it. So
Yeah.
if it's a choice because you've discovered skydiving, you've got your answer. If it's not a choice because of illness or some other circumstance, then in that way you've got your answer too. So I think that goes back to our definition of retirement is choice, flexibility, and deciding today's the day where I stop doing what I'm doing and I do something else, or today's the day I take 6 months off. I have another colleague who's a videographer, and they packed up and sold everything at the age of 40 and are now traveling the world because, like Jay, can work just online and have their equipment there and so on. And so in some way, their second career is their retirement. It's extremely well. And when lucky enough for them, when they sell, all they've got to sell is equipment and make sure their clients are comfortable with somebody else. So.
Yeah. It's interesting that we're talking about this, because I had an epiphany in January, and that epiphany was that I realized that my business didn't need me physically as much as I thought it needed me, right? And the reason why is I was in the hospital for a month with pneumonia and invasive strep A in my bloodstream and all this. Anyways, so I was in the hospital for a month and I couldn't work. And I was kind of panicking, thinking I need to be in front of a computer. And coming out of the hospital and looking at everything, as I kind of got back into the groove of things, I didn't lose a client, because I automated as many things as I could, for my business. So I didn't lose any clients. They didn't lose any rankings. I didn't lose any profits. No income was lost as a result of it. So I'm kind of looking at myself, kind of going, oh, okay, well, it looks like I've automated as many things as I could, so that I can, so that's actually possible. So I've really taken a new outlook on my business and running my business. Kind of more of a laid back approach. Say, okay, well, I'm comfortable with what I'm doing right now. I can just do what I'm doing and everything will be fine. So, I have my local SEO business, and then I have my affiliate marketing business. So, and both of those create, a passive source of income. And I have people that I have employed for the local SEO part to help with people, with my clients, to maintain that their rankings are fine and they can do my job, right? So, as what Ann said, I can replicate me. Well, I can't replicate me, but I can replicate the process that's needed to be done to carry the business on. It's the personality that can't be replicated, but that's someone else mold their own personality. So it was a really interesting epiphany, if you will. I'm panicking in the hospital, thinking, oh my God, my business is going to melt into the ground. It carried on my wayward son. So.
Wow, that's great. I mean, you're in a really fortunate situation. That's a job that, to be able to basically be off, whether it's through illness or vacation, and still have your income keep going. Not everyone is in that situation.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And that also does make your business quite saleable, because, again, you could train someone. You could say, look, this thing basically runs itself. If you want to grow it, here's what you need to do. And yeah, they'll just bring their own personality.
Right.
I work a lot with subcontractors in the construction industry, and the personality of the owner makes a big difference. They get the contract because of who they are, and so in trying to sell their business, it doesn't always work. It's an interesting situation. I just go to throw out a stat. 40% of all Canadians include winning the lottery as part of their retirement plan.
God.
Pretty sad situation. The reality is that most people that are not self-employed, I'm not sure what the stats are on self-employed, but certainly people that just work at a job and are going to retire are not going to be able to do that at 65 as they once dreamed of doing. So it's, we're in a great situation if we're doing something that we love, that we can continue to do and just scale back the hours if that's what we choose to do.
Well, that whole flexibility thing is so critical. And I think when I think of some of the clients that I've worked with who, let's say, work for government or punch a clock, or they just can't wait for the day that they retire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that whole concept of Freedom 55 was pointed at them. And but the interesting thing that I've noticed among that group is, and they're the ones that think they're going to travel. That's all they're going to do in their retirement, is they're going to travel, or they're going to play golf, or something along that line. But what happens after they do the big retirement thing is, it takes about a year to a year and a half for what I call decompression. So they get past that because they were so stressed out by the hours and the pressures of the job that they had. Takes them that long to kind of come down to.
Yeah, they've been doing a routine for 45 years.
Yeah. So, but then once that decompression happens and they've gone on a trip or whatever, then the boredom sets in, and they're looking around in desperation. Now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so, even if you do have a job with where you punch a clock, or the job as we often refer to, I like to say to people, as you're beginning to see the retirement time coming, you better start planning for that now, and start doing some things that are going to prepare you to get there. And the interesting result of that for a number of clients that I've worked with is that once they started focusing on something that they were going to do after they finished, they suddenly began to see the current job in a different light and began to really enjoy different aspects of it. So it's kind of an odd thing, but I think regardless of which situation we're in, that whole idea of passive income is really the piece that's the important part. Jay, I mean, that's what you had in place there, was you had it all set up so that there was passive income. It didn't depend on you, and I think that as time goes on, there are going to be a lot of people looking for ways to kind of design something that will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd be really blown away as to how many people are searching, like on Google on the internet, like for a system or training or how to kind of create passive income.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
and then there's websites out there that teach people how to do that, in terms of how to make money online on the internet and whatnot. So similar to like last week, what that gentleman we were talking to, who's in Mexico right now. He writes for a living, and he's living in Mexico. So I mean, that's the, it may not be passive because he has to write to earn the income, but yeah, it's crazy how many people are searching for a solution like that. So.
Well, and of course the fact that we have the electronic world, the online world, it sure adds to the flexibility that we all have.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. When you mentioned Freedom 55, it got me thinking about that term, and that's actually a marketing term put out by London Life.
Yes.
And to me, it was one of the it's a brilliant marketing term because it says, all right, listen, you can retire 10 years earlier if you join us, right? And it's just this term that has stuck, right? And I'm sure it's made them a lot of money. But I remember seeing the commercials when I was a kid. Freedom 55, London Life.
Yeah. That was the boomer's dream, right? To retire at 55, and unfortunately, the reality now is that that's not going to happen. So, Jay, I'm curious, with affiliate marketing, I mean, it's going to become increasingly popular. There's no doubt about it. There's so many people that want to retire from their 9-to-5 job, and they don't have enough income, so they need that kind of passive income. What's the success rate for people just kind of getting into it? Oh man, I want passive income, and they start trying to do it. How many people actually make that?
Typically it's a low success rate because people are, when they start searching for kind of training or a system on how to do it or learn how to do it, they're inundated by people that are creating false promises like, oh, I'll teach you how to do this push button system that will be a cash cow and all this kind of stuff. So they get steered down a wrong path, and as a result of that, they get frustrated and give up, right? For those of the people that don't, they stay on a right path, they find training that works with them and whatnot, the success rate is higher, right? Because as long as they stick with it, but it really does depend on the individual. Because one of the things that you have to do for this affiliate marketing is write. You have to be able to write content, and it's content that gets put out onto the internet. So if they don't take action and write content and build a website, then it creates a difficulty for people. And as a result of that, that's why it typically has a low success rate. And it's not because the system doesn't work. It's because it's all about the people who take action or the people who don't take action.
Right, and those companies are in no way interested in screening people and saying, you know what, realistically, you're not going to make it, so don't take my course. They want everyone to take their course, right?
Yeah.
And it's like being a solo entrepreneur. Not everybody can do it. They just can't.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Some people are, prefer routine, where they're told what to do as opposed to do what they want themselves, right?
Yeah.
Oh. So, Larry, we haven't heard from you. What do you think about retirement?
Well, overall, the social contract that used to be in place between the employer and employee has changed, and essentially it's considered to be broken at this point. People who used to be able to expect to have a job for 30, 40 years and retire, it's no more. There's no more retirement programs available. And a lot of big companies have actually retroactively rescinded their retirement programs. So people who are counting on that money no longer can. And what that means is that the baby boomers, which I'm in the middle of that group, are sort of out there without that safety net that our parents and our grandparents had. And so we're sort of struggling to find a way to retire, to have something that will allow us to retire in a reasonable time period. And I don't know if I've talked to anybody lately who's told me that, yeah, I'm going to plan on retiring at 65 and have fun. It's more like, well, no, I can't retire. And that's what I hear from people. I'm never going to be able to retire.
Yeah.
And it means that we have to be creative about what we're doing and where we're going to get our money, how we're going to be able to fund that retirement. So people are grasping at straws, and they are grasping at things that get-rich-quick sort of things that are thrown out there. Pay me money, I'll make you rich, sort of things. And it also means that if you are an entrepreneur, that you need to be thinking about succession planning.
Yeah.
Will you be able to give your business to your kids and let them pay for part of your retirement, or employee stock option program, or sell the business? And as Ann pointed out, a lot of businesses, first of all, don't plan for it, and second of all, are not really structured to have an equity that they can then pass on and get that equity back. You spend 20 years building a business and then you have nothing to sell at the end of it, well, you haven't really built any value in your business. So the whole equity you've taken out in the form of whatever salary you've taken for yourself, and that's it.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say, Larry, is there's a difference between a business and self-employment.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, as solopreneurs or self-employed people that choose to stay in that mode, and sometimes there are some good reasons for choosing that. But if we're thinking in terms of a business that is larger and more complex and saleable, it's two different things altogether, I think.
Yeah. Well, a contractor's equity is his body.
Yeah,
it's true.
So basically, and I did own a handyman business for a while, and the contractors, their bodies would give out at a certain point, and they had absolutely no plan. They didn't have the ability to plan. They had no way to save. Their money came in and it went back out to pay for rent, tobacco, booze, sometimes food. I know I'm being a little disparaging, but I dealt with all manner of people there. But they're stuck. They really, at a certain point, they're going to end up essentially out on the street. Because they take money in cash, and because they're not willing to pay taxes, because they think it's a better thing, well, then they have no CPP. They have nothing to draw back on. Maybe they have some OAS they can draw on. But because they aren't far-sighted enough to be willing to pay taxes and report their income, now they have nothing. They have no equity in their business to sell because they didn't pay taxes on it and log it. And they have no CPP because they didn't pay the CPP taxes because they wanted to save a few bucks. So, it's a double jeopardy. I get a little bit more money now, and I don't have anything later.
That's why I have a Swiss bank account in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, well, the Swiss bank accounts have been pried open, too. You can't even do that anymore.
But I think there's another layer to it, too. There's whether you're retiring from a job or whether you've decided to narrow down your business. Yes, there's the passing the business on, but in my case it's very different. So no matter how successful my business is, if I'm not careful, I'm leaving a liability behind for anybody who's involved in my life, because I have these 120 life-size clay sculptures that aren't for sale, will never be for sale, And there's a number of artists out there who work this way. We get paid to exhibit, paid to speak about our art, and the artwork is a social commodity. The problem is if you haven't planned for what happens at the event of your death or an illness or whatever takes the business down, then not only my business grounds to a halt, Jay, compared to yours. When I'm sick, a speaker that can't speak is not a speaker. An artist that can't create is not an artist. So it's a real problem. I haven't got a system in place for that residual income. More importantly than that, and that's why I joined this call today, is planning ahead whether I have the luxury of saying, okay, when I'm 80, I will sort of stop doing what I'm doing, or if something happens sooner where I get sick, those sculptures become a liability if I don't have a system in place for where they're going to go, who's going to storage, for exhibiting. It would be actually better to destroy them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for you, Anne, I mean, something like teach people how to create sculptures like that, or create a series of videos on how to create these types of sculptures, and then have those as assets and sell those online, right? Even on a website called Udemy, which is like a network of courses, right? And that could be a passive income as a kind of a contingency plan, you know, or at least a escape clause, you know, so that way you don't feel committed. Because I mean, honestly, like, what's the difference between, you know, having all these physical assets that you're required to work? What's the difference between that and employment?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, the difference is she
brings it better. Might not be the one I chose.
So, you know what this reminds me of? I was thinking about a farming family that I knew way back when. And I mean, if you take if you go back far enough into the whole Canadian rural experience, you had a mom and dad who had a farm, and they had a bunch of kids. The people I knew used to laugh and say they had to have 4 because the potato process required four stations, so they had 4 kids in order to cover that. But when I remember going to visit them, and one family had a house on one end of the property, and the older family was in the main house, and then the grandfather was there as well, and I mean, people, as I observed, people gradually they gradually stopped doing things that became really, really difficult, but they maintained all the things that they could still do. And they had certain roles to make sure that the whole kept on going. And I think our urbanization and the fact that we don't function in family groups any longer has really created this difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
So, those examples that Larry was giving, those people off sort of just functioning on their own, whereas in the times gone by, that person probably was part of a family group that, where they all did something. So, urbanization and is really. Oh, we just lost Jay.
That's okay. His business continues without him.
Yes, it does.
He's good.
System to come right back.
Yeah. So I think that I mean, there's a few themes. I'm looking at the clock here. It's probably time to wrap up. But just by way of a summary, we talked about retirement is for us is about having choices, being able to be more flexible, that there really is no end date, and that if we can figure out a way to create passive income, then you know, that's going to be one way to keep the finances going, and I guess that is the long-term succession planning in a kind of a way, isn't it? Is by figuring out what we could do in order to keep the funds rolling in. So, in other words, putting a lot of effort up front in creating something that will bring something in return. And the other piece about the flexibility that we have today seems to be enhanced by the fact that we have this online capability, so we can do it anywhere. And as Jay said, he has his system, his business kind of systematized so that it can take care of itself without him being there every second of the business. So I think that kind of covers it all. I remember, Anne, you said not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur.
They're not, and the other thing I would add to that is it is a legitimate retirement plan to sell your business, but you have to be aware of whether your business is saleable and perhaps moving it to being saleable. And not all businesses are. Yeah. But I do know, I mean, I know some contractors that have done that and done it successfully. So you have to, you have to find out. You have to look at all those things, and you probably need some expert help if you want to sell a business.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much, all of you, and Jay, also Jay, who's departed,
just disappeared,
for joining me in the conversation. And if anybody has a brilliant idea for a subject for next week, I'm open to hearing it. I really enjoyed the conversation this morning.
I think a good subject is one that Jay brought up, and it's that passive income. How, as entrepreneurs, do we have, what kind of revenues or what kind of streams or ideas do we have for passive income? Those times where we suddenly are whisked away because of even a simple cold or something more serious that takes time away from where we're doing what we do.
Okay, that's a great idea, and I might invite Sue Ferreira to join us, because she's that's exactly the message in her business is passive income, how to create passive income. Oh, there's Jay back. Welcome back.
I just why you were gone, Jay.
The one commitment that I have is answer the phone when my wife calls. It's like when your parents call when you're at a party. Shh, nobody talk.
I'm not at a party.
Yeah. So we were just ready to wrap up, and I had been tossed out the question: what could we choose as a topic for next time? So Cheryl Ann has suggested let's really unpack the whole concept of passive income.
Okay. Oh yeah, I could talk about that for hours.
Yeah, I want to hear. I want to hear about this minefield, because obviously there's a bit of one out there. Who has legitimate training, who doesn't, and and like just the ideas that you gave Cheryl Ann of how she could create passive income from what she already has. I think that's awesome.
And I missed the website you said, so I've got a note here to ask you about that. I missed the name of it.
Right on. Okay, so we're going to close now. If you want to, folks in the green room want to stay after we close the broadcast, you're welcome to do so. So this is Lowell Ann of Being Your Own CEO, signing off for now.